Shalom, brethren. Today's topic is God's calendar. It came to my mind because it seems to be other groups creating a calendar of their own. A calendar is used to mark and identify specific dates in time. Time is divided into units of days, weeks, months, and years. From creation, Yah, the God of creation, the Torah and the Bible, has had one calendar which remains today. Humans, Yah's created, have created their own calendars, discarded some and adjusted others, some of which remain today. In this short study, I can only focus on Yah's calendar and its paramount relevance to his people and not the human ones. Should you be interested in human calendar history, I have other studies you can request. I have in the last year or so, heard of who are called grassroots groups, or a group, admirably seeking to follow the God of the Bible, but yet creating their own God calendar, which affects the times of his weekly appointed holy convocations, sabbaths. If this division of these created calendars is not addressed at this grassroots stage, those seeking obedience to the Bible may find themselves faced with as many Bible calendars as there are denominations, Christian denominations. A main purpose of a calendar and feast day is to have Yah's people keeping it and worship him at the same time for his appreciation. Though the same wrong time is not to his liking, as stated in Isaiah chapter 1, verse 14, which says, "Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hateth. They are a trouble unto me. I am weary of them." My point being, just because everyone does something at the same time, if that time is a wrong time, God is not pleased with it. So, units of time. Firstly, the day. Before God created humans, he first created the method by which they were to identify time and dates. In the King James's version of the Bible, we read in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, "And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." I'll come on to that word seasons later on. Verse 15, "And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day." The fourth day came after the first three. A day is defined as Genesis chapter 1, 3 says, "And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day." Now, the Hebrew word for light is given the identification of H, standing for Hebrew, 3117. To every word that is translated from into English from Hebrew word, and that's how you identify it. So the word day is given the identification of H3117. "And the darkness he called a night, and the evening and the morning were the first day." So here we see the word day, the same Hebrew identification, 3117, used for the light part and also for the whole 24-hour period of the evening and the morning. Meaning the light part is called day and consists of the evening and the morning. Later in the Bible, we will see further definitions of a day, as in, for example, John chapter 11, verse 9, which says, "Are they not 12 hours in the day? Now, without going into breaking down the word day by its Bible use and concordance, I simply want to point out it is used in two contexts to refer to the period between the sunrise and sunset and the whole 24-hour part of one sunset to another. For example, as in Genesis chapter 7, verse 17, which says, "And the flood was 40 days upon the earth." So obviously the flood didn't come and go in during the 24-hour periods. It was there for the whole 40 days, 40 times 24 hours. Genesis chapter 37, verse 34, "And Jacob rent or tore his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his sons many days," meaning 24-hour periods. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4, "And it came to pass when I heard these words that I sat down and wept and mourned certain days and fasted and prayed before the Lord of heaven." So obviously he didn't fast for parts of each day. He fasted for the whole 24-hour periods of those collective days. So it is paramount we acknowledge a day has 24 hours. Otherwise, as these grassroots groups, we may, or some of them at least, we may be deceived into keeping God's instructions as the Sabbath or fasting for 12 hours rather than 24 hours. The Jews have never kept a 12-hour Sabbath or a Day of Atonement, for example, which is a fast day. So just make it clear, it's a misunderstanding to think that a day purely consists of 12 hours and the Sabbath is purely a 12-hour period. As we see, Yah's days were numbered 1 to 7, not named. The only name used was Sabbath. However, Sabbath is not solely for the weekly seventh day, but all Yah's identified dates of holy convocation, appointed times, and a year as listed in Leviticus chapter 23, and the Sabbath year of Leviticus chapter 25, verse 4, which says, "But in the seventh year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for Yahweh. Thou shalt neither sow thy seed nor prune thy vineyard." Now go back to the word seasons in 1:14, which read, anyway, Genesis 1:14. Seasons is a poor translation of the Hebrew word moed, which means appointed time. Sadly, Christians have been beguiled into thinking the Sabbath, the name given to the seventh-day period, is synonymous with rest. It does not mean rest, but an identification of a Yah appointed time to come before him, which we cannot do if we are at work or working. Thus, we rest from our working for the purpose of keeping God's Sabbath and worshiping him at that specific period of time. Thus, this specific period, i.e. between the 6th and 7th sunsets, cannot be changed to another period of time as between the midnight of man's Saturday to Sunday's today. So you can't take the word Sabbath, which only applies to a specific period, and put it to apply for another period. Yah's days are identified by the greater light of the sun in Genesis chapter 1:16. In basic terms, the earth rotates completely over a 24-hour period on an axis and sun axis, and the light of the sun is received on it. So that's the day part of time. The week. I think all Bible believers accept a 7-day week. I have not heard any different. Genesis testifies to a 7th-day week, which I think we all know, so I will not go further. Man has had a few attempts at varying the number of days in a week, number of days in a few, but has returned to settle on 7. The week is identified by 7 days rotation of the earth in relation to the sun's light. Third period of time, the month. The lesser light of Genesis 1:16 is the moon. That operates on a Yah-instituted rotation cycle in conjunction with the greater light of the sun. By the moon, we get the sign of the months and the name month. In simple terms, the moon rotates on a 30-day cycle around the Earth. The traditional concept of months arose with the cycle of moon phases. Such lunar months or lunations are synodic months and last approximately 29.53 days, making for roughly 12.37 such months in one Earth year. Those 12 months could have a connection to the 12 tribes of Israel, but that's another study. So far, we have the day, which is identified by the Earth spinning on itself over a 24-hour period, and we have the month identified by the moon going around the Earth whilst it is spinning on itself, and that takes 30-day period. Now, without going into the history of man's various calendars, which had various number of months and days per month, they were simply trying to keep step with Yah's ordained sun and moon permanent system. Today, they have probably got as close as they can with their one-day leap year adjustments every 4 years. Science is simply the observation and recording of what is in place and using your observations for man's decision making. Man's error is changing God's standard days in a month to various numbers of, say, 28, 30, and 31. Also, when each month starts, which have no bearing on the new moon sighting, i.e., odd months may start in the middle of a moon's rotation around the Earth. A new moon is the first slither of light from the sun on the moon after a totally dark moon. A full moon denotes the middle of the month. So in other words, sometimes as this moon is rotating around the Earth, sometimes it will be, let's say, at 12 o'clock behind the Earth. The Earth is closer to the sun than the moon. So you have the moon, the Earth, and then the sun, let's say, in that order. So when the moon is behind the Earth, it is dark. Yes, you will not see it. As it rotates around the Earth and comes, say, at 6 o'clock to the Earth and in line with the sun, then that's when you see it fully. And then it goes round again back to 12 o'clock. As a full moon, which is when it's really in line with the Earth and the sun, is the middle of the month, because it's now at 6 o'clock. It's now halfway round its circle around the Earth. The year is the larger of the 4 cycle periods of time mentioned in Genesis chapter 1. It basically consists of roughly 365 days, or 52 weeks, or 7 days of, so 52 weeks of 7 days, or 12 months of 30 days. The Bible identifies the first day and the month of the year in Exodus chapter 12, verse 2. It says, "This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year unto you." That day starts the counting and corresponds with a new moon, which starts the first month of the year. It is 14 days before the first holy period in the Torah, or the Bible, and God's calendar for his annual holy appointed days, appointed seasons, not for his weekly seventh-day one, which started at creation. So the Earth spinning gives us a week timetable. The moon around the Earth gives us the month's timetable, and the Earth going around the sun gives a yearly timetable. This misunderstanding is the basis of the new grassroots theology. Now, before I go on to explain that, which is the main subject of today's study, I would point out that in Judaism, their year starts with Rosh Hashanah, literally titled the head of the year. The biblical name for this holiday is Yom Teruah, or the day of shouting, stroke the blasting of the shofar, the trumpets. It is the first of the high holy days, or days of awe, as specified by Leviticus chapter 23, verse 23 to 25. So they use the feast days as a mark for their new year rather than literal new year of the Exodus chapter 12, verse 2, although they do recognize that as well. Okay, the problem with the new grassroots theology. A quote from them in reference, or one of them, should I say, in reference to God is, He never intended for time to be kept on a continual 7-day cycle. His calendar is non-continual, as this helps keep our attention on Him. According to them, when God counted the days in Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 to 7, counted the days from 1 to 7 and rested on the seventh day, later in Exodus chapter 16, verse 23, calling it a Sabbath, the counting would have a 1 to 2 day pause every 28 days, or 4 sets of 7 days, and resume from number 1 every new moon. They use a 29 and 30-day month, and if I understand correctly, may not count the day-night when the moon is completely dark. In other words, when it is at 12 o'clock behind the earth, so that the sun cannot be shown on it. Again, quoting from them, the Sabbath always falls on the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th of the lunar calendar months, the man's calendar months, not the 7th, as in Genesis chapters 2, verses 2 to 3. Again, quoting from them, keep in mind that these Sabbath dates, 8, 15, 22, and 29, can fall on different days or dates on the Roman Gregorian calendar, because the Gregorian calendar is always continuous. New Moon Day will happen 2 days after the 4th Sabbath of the month, if there are 30 days in that month. Now, nowhere in the Torah, the Bible, has God ever tied the weekly 7-day cycle to the new moon's cycle, regardless of the number of days in their month. In other words, the earth spins independently of the moon. No? It is not tied to when the moon goes, circles around the earth. Not even Exodus chapter 12, verse 2, does God say that first day of the month and the year will also be the first day of the week. Exodus chapter 12, verse 2 reads, "This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month." Verse 6, "And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month." It is extremely important you note for verse 3, God did not refer to the day in terms of a week, i.e. the 3rd day of the 2nd week, nor in verse 6 as the last day of the 2nd week, but the 14th day of the month. The same for Numbers chapter 28, verses 16 to 18. And further verses are Genesis chapter 8, verse 5 and 13. There are others who are called foolish Christians who, to support their Sunday worship system, try to argue that the phrase first day use always refer to a Sunday. For example, using Leviticus chapter 23, verse 24, which says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath." And so they'll say, you see, that first day is a Sunday, is a Sabbath day, is the Sabbath, which is totally wrong. At least the above mentioned grassroots groups try to keep Yah's Sabbaths and know the difference between the first day of a month and the 7th day Sabbath, or the 8th day in their theology. Weekly Sabbath, which occurs every 7th day, irrespective of when the new moon occurs, does not influence the annual Sabbaths, which are appointed according to when the month starts, i.e., on the 10th day of the 7th month. It would be a coincidence if the weekly and an annual Sabbath fell on the same date, making it what sometimes is called a high Sabbath. That was when comparing it to the man's calendar. Most coincidence is that annual Sabbath also falls on the same day as weekly Sabbath, let's say a Saturday. Unlike the new theology that I think would always have the first day of unleavened bread falling on the second weekly Sabbath, because they start their counting of the weekly Sabbath from the first day of the month. Remember, the new theology states, God, never intended for time to be kept on a continual seventh-day cycle. His calendar is non-continual. And I said, that is silly. The calendar is based on the earth spinning on its own axis, and it spins continually. That is their foundational error. Using a straight line or single wheel approach, which has fixed new moon intervals of, say, 30 days, and also 4 times 7-day intervals, each starting on the same day. In other words, they're using one thing turning, let's say the moon going around, and they have that 30-day cycle divided into weekly intervals of 7 and also monthly interval of 7, rather than taking the earth as the marking of a 7th-day cycle and the moon separately marking the monthly cycle. They're on 2 different cycles. They're not on the same cycle. So this is how they do it. Number 1 in red is the new moon days. Number 30, the 30s are 30 days in the month. And they will start the Sabbath 7 days after number 1. So as I say, the 8th day, the 15th day, 22nd day, and 29th day. Then comes the end of the month, day 30. Then starts number 1, new month which you don't count. And then 7 days after then, they then have another Sabbath, so the 8th day of the 2nd month, 15th day, and 2nd, 29th, and so forth, all through the year. The 8th, 15th, 29th, 22nd, as a weekly 7-day Sabbath, 1 is a new moon, and 30 there. So they put it all on one line. So they're using the one circle, the moon circle, let's say, to denote both weeks and months, rather than using the earth cycle to denote the weekly days and the moon to separately do it. Now, a simplistic way of putting it, without giving you a confusing way, is imagine you have 3 cogs, a small cog, a middle cog, and a big cog. And this cog, which is the earth, turns, and every time it goes around 7 times, it will line the moon, this cog will turn a seventh, and so on. Yeah. So this cog, the moon, will have a 30 days markings on it. This one, the earth, have a 7-day marking on it, and this one, the sun, bigger one, have a 365-day marking. And each of these 7 cogs will turn one of these cogs on the moon, and one of these moon cogs will turn the bigger cog here. So when this earth cog has turned 28 times, it will almost have turned this moon cog completely round, except for 2 days. And the moon's cog, which turns 30 on 3rd-day cycle, whenever it is turned 12, a complete turn, it would only have turned this big wheel 30 days, 30 gaps. But when it's turned about 12 or 12 and a half times round, it would then have turned this big cog 1 complete round. So that's a simplistic way of putting it in terms of cogs. Well, I'll give you a better, the actual real example in a minute. So here, each wheel cog rotates independently of the other. The smaller is the earth, the medium is the moon, which is 30 times the diameter of the earth, and larger diameter of the earth, and larger the sun, which is 400 times larger than the moon. The order of the days of the week, 1 to 7, or naming Saturday to the Sabbath in our earthly calendar, does not affect their rotation nor sequence. The first of the week, the Earth one, does not regularly start on the first of the month, only sometimes by coincidence. For illustration only, as the cogs turning each other. In reality, the moon is a little more than a quarter the size of the Earth, and the sun is 109 times bigger than the Earth, which means you get 1.3 million Earths fit around the sun. So that's the simplistic way. Now, the actual way it works is like this. You have the sun in the middle and the planets around them. Each planet will rotate on itself, possibly, if they're the same as the Earth, but they go around the sun according to whatever days it takes them to go around the sun. Here we have the Earth. The Earth spins on its own self. Yes, and that takes 24 hours. Now, this side of the sun, 12 o'clock, will take 24 hours before it comes round to the top again. Whilst that is spinning, it is also traveling around the Earth on a 365-day cycle. Sorry, traveling around the sun on a 365-day cycle. The moon, which is here, let's say at 11 o'clock on this map on the Earth, or by the Earth thing, is a quarter the size of the Earth, approximately a quarter the size. That takes 30 days to go around the Earth. So whilst the Earth is traveling here, around this way, the moon is also circling it as it travels around the cycle. That's the complication of God's calendar. And it takes 30 days to start off at, say, 12 o'clock and goes all the way around here and comes back in here. So when the moon is fully here and the Earth is blocking it out, it's dark. Yes, and then the minute you get a little sliver of the sun catching it, it's a new moon, meaning a new month. And I say this Earth circling identifies the days, 7 turns equals a week, and that has nothing to do with the moon going around it in a 30-day period. And the Earth going around the sun in 365 days, again, is independent. The Earth's rotation of Earth's spin is the rotation of planet Earth around its own axis. Each turn counterclockwise. Each Earth rotates once in about 24 hours with respect to the sun, and about 365 days around the sun. Thus, it is simultaneously rotating on its own axis and another around the sun. The moon orbits the Earth in prograde direction and completes one revolution relatively to the sun in about 29.53 days. The moon is a little more than a quarter the size of the Earth, and as I said before, the sun is 109 times bigger than the Earth, which means you get 1.3 million Earths to fit in the size of the moon. However, to further demonstrate the error of the grassroots groups in thinking the first day of the month is also the first day of the week, below listed 1 to 10 are some other verses. Those verses were taken using the seventh day as the Bible Sabbath, because I thought that's what we're going to use, before reading the group's theology of Sabbaths falling on the 8th, 15th, and 22nd days of the month. However, a similar Bible search for an 8th day, whereas our search for 7th day, will also prove it is never called nor relates to a regular weekly Sabbath. Using the King James's 8th day appears 27 times. Note Leviticus chapter 12, verse 3, a male child circumcision on the 8th day after its birth as commanded in Genesis chapter 17, verse 12, and practiced in Luke chapters 1, verse 59 and 2:21, is not called a Sabbath day. The 8th day is not called a Sabbath day ever. In 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 33, we see King Jeroboam creating a feast out of his own heart on the 15th day of the 8th month. If that day was God's weekly Sabbath, it would not be frowned upon. Again, there it is not called a Sabbath day. 2 Chronicles chapters 29, verse 17, Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 18, nor Philippians chapter 3, verse 5 does not call the 8th day a Sabbath. Okay, going on to verses that talk about the 7th day to show that, again, the 7th day, the days do not correspond with the month. I do not start the months as well. First day of the month does not also start the first day of the week. Exodus chapter 12, verse 18. I shall read them pretty fast. You can slow it down and read it for yourself on the screen. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at evening, ye shall eat unleavened bread until the 20th day of the month, either 21st day at even. So note the 14th day and the 21st days are not called Sabbaths, which would be the case if the first day of the month was also the first day of the week. Exodus chapter 16, verse 26, 6 days shall ye gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath. See also Matthew 28, verse 1. So that's not the 7th day as in the 7th new moon day, but the 7th day of the start of a specific period of time. Number 2, these days are not referred to as first of the week, but only the first of the month. Exodus chapters 40, verses 2 and verse 17 we have seen as well. Number 3, this 7th day is not called a weekly Sabbath. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 8. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh 7 days in the 7th month. It is an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. Was the grassroots theology biblical? We should never see 7th day, as it will always be a Sabbath and referred to as such, as in Leviticus 23, verse 24. In other words, the first day of the week, the 7th day, is not tied to the first day of the month. Leviticus number 4, Leviticus 23, 39. Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto Yahweh 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. Note 1, it does not say the first day of the 3rd week of the 7th month, nor mentions a 3rd Sabbath, i.e. on the 1st, 7th, and 8th days. Leviticus 23, verse 40. And ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of fig trees, and the willows of the brook, and ye shall rejoice before Yahweh your God 7 days. Does not say call the 7th day a Sabbath. Number 6, 2 Chronicles 29, verse 17. Now they began on the first day of the first month, not called the first day of the week of the year. See also Ezra chapter 7, verse 9, 10, verse 17, Ezekiel 26, verse 1, 29, verse 17, and 45, verse 18. Number 7, note when the Bible means the first day of the week, which is different to the first day of the month, it says so. Matthew 28, verse 1, in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week. Mark chapter 16, verse 2, and very early in the morning, the first day of the week. Also Mark chapter 16, verse 9, 24, verse 1, John 21 and 19, and Acts 4, verse 7. Scripture number 8, Mark 14, verse 12, and the first day of unleavened bread. Leviticus 23, verse 6, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread. If the grassroots theology was biblical, This would be the first day of the third week and mentioned as such. Verse 9, point 9, Leviticus 13, verse 2. When a man shall have in the skin of his flesh a rising scab, is talking about leprosy, or bright spot, and it be in the skin of his flesh like the plague of leprosy, then he shall be brought unto Aaron the priest, or unto one of his sons the priest. Verse 5. And the priest shall look on him the seventh day. Now, if the priest is to look on him the seventh day, it would be a Sabbath, according to the grassroots theology. That means the leprous, this is again, I assumed I saw they took the eighth day as a Sabbath, 8, 15, and 22, 29. Anyway, it is not called the seventh nor eighth days are called Sabbaths. That means the leprous will all have to be brought on the first day of the month. By then, those who missed on the seventh, so who missed 1 month's seventh day, would have to wait until the next month's seventh day. That would cause the spread of leprosy among the camp, as well as overwork the priests on Sabbaths, when their duty is to administer Sabbath services to Yah. Clearly, by verses 6, 27, 32, 34, 51 of that chapter, we see it cannot be talking about the same seventh day. Thus, the counting does not start as the first day of the month, being the first day of the week, especially when we read 7 days and seventh day in Leviticus chapter 14, verses 8 to 9 and 39. The last verse of example, number 10, about 48 times in the Bible, the Bible uses seventh day, and clearly is not talking about the seventh day of a week that starts the same day as that of the month. And as I said, you can do the same search for eighth day, and you find the same concept. Satan constantly comes up with ways to deceive seekers. The above new grassroots theology of challenging the 6,000 plus years seventh day, or Friday sunset to Saturdays, has caused confusion and deterred some previous Sabbath keepers and Bible followers to go back into the world, thinking it's all too confusing. According to their predicted charts for 2024, there are some 9 days between some months. The charts are further on below. Many of these new theologies come with a money-making contribution request by their creators, donations to help complete special projects of translations of the Bible or whatever, levels of membership according to your committed monthly contribution, etc. 2 Peter warns us of such people, chapter 2, verse 3. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words, nice speaking words and persuasion, make merchandise of you. Romans 16, verse 18. For they that are such serve not our Lord Yeshua, but their own bellies, and by good words, I say persuasive words, and feigned and fair speeches deceive the hearts of the simple. Ones again who think that God's calendar is based on one line of 30 days divided into 4 sets of seven, rather than having 2 separate lines or planets turning. The earth turns to denote the week as it turns on a 24-hour period, and the moon going around the earth denotes a month period. There's 2 separate cycle systems, and then you have the sun, as I said. It may be of interest to know that from the position of the stars, every moment of time has been kept track of since before 500 BC. Is God the creator not the only awesome being, consistent to the moment, nothing irregular or without design? Hence, when he gave a particular slice of that time cycle a name, the Sabbath, I say between the 6th day and 7th day, it would not be confused for another slice of time. Thus, one cannot keep the Sabbath at any other time but the appointed times of God. And I say using his calendar, not man's created calendar. Now, Okay, so here's one of the predicted charts for October 2024. And you'll see they have the Sabbath here falling on the Thursday. Yeah, on a Thursday. This fourth Sabbath of the previous month fell on a Wednesday. Then they have the new moon, and then they have the eighth day, which the Sabbath will fall here on the Gregorian calendar, the 10th, 17th, 24th of the month. But for them, it would be the eighth day, the 15th day, and the 22nd day. So all four on a Thursday this month. Going on to the next month, November, the new moon came on a Saturday, and then coincidentally, they have their Sabbath falling on a Saturday, being the eighth day for the first Sabbath, the 15th day for the second Sabbath, the 22nd day for the third Sabbath, and the 30th day, 29th day for the fourth Sabbath. So we had from Wednesday 1 month to Thursday in 1 month, and a Saturday in this November month. And the prediction for December 2024 is you will have the last day of their calendar falling on a Sunday, Gregorian calendar Sunday, the new moon day falling on a Monday, and then 7 days later, so don't count the new moon day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's been the 8th day of their month, is their first Sabbath, and the 15th of the month, the second Sabbath, and the third Sabbath is on that day, and the fourth one happened on that day. And this is a Monday. So you see, for them, it is a changing every month when compared to the Gregorian calendar. It is changing rather than always being on a seventh day Saturday, like God made it simple for us to understand the weekly Sabbaths. Shalom, happy studying. Do not be deceived by these groups.